The voicemail blinked at the corner of Daniel Harper's phone for 3 days before he finally listened to it. He was too busy closing the biggest deal in his company's history to care about Christmas dinners or blinking red lights. But when he finally pressed play, sitting alone in his downtown Toronto penthouse overlooking the icy shimmer of Lake Ontario, his mother's soft, aging voice filled the room. "Danny, I know you're busy, sweetheart. I just wanted to know if you're still coming for Christmas this year. It's okay if you can't. I understand." The message ended with a small pause, like she had more to say but chose not to. Daniel stared at the skyline, at the blinking lights of office towers that never seemed to sleep. He had built his tech empire from nothing. Raised in a small town in Ontario, son of a factory worker and a school librarian, he had promised himself he would never struggle again. And he didn't. He owned luxury cars, wore tailored suits, and had assistants who scheduled every minute of his life. But somewhere along the way, Christmas had become just another date on a calendar. His assistant had already booked him a private flight to Vancouver for a last-minute investor meeting on December 24th. "It's crucial," she had insisted. "This could double the company's valuation." So he texted his mother, "Can't make it this year. Big deal closing. Love you." He told himself she would understand. On the morning of December 23rd, as a heavy snowfall blanketed Toronto, Daniel's car broke down on the Gardiner Expressway. Steam hissed from the hood, and the driver cursed under his breath. Traffic crawled, horns blared, and Daniel felt irritation rise in his chest. "Call roadside assistance," he snapped. But with the storm, wait times were hours long. That's when a rusty tow truck pulled up behind them. The side read, "Miller's Auto Repair, family-owned." A broad-shouldered man in grease-stained coveralls stepped out, brushing snow off his beard. Beside him, bundled in a bright red coat and knitted hat, was a little girl holding a thermos. "You folks need a hand?" the mechanic asked warmly. Daniel almost declined. He wasn't used to depending on strangers. But the cold was biting, and time was slipping. The mechanic introduced himself as Mike. His daughter, Lily, smiled shyly and handed Daniel a paper cup. "Hot chocolate," she said proudly. "Daddy says it fixes everything." Daniel took it reluctantly. The warmth spread through his frozen fingers. As Mike worked under the hood, Lily stood beside Daniel's car, her boots crunching in the snow. "Are you going somewhere for Christmas?" she asked innocently. "Vancouver," Daniel replied. "Business." "Oh." She looked confused. "But Christmas is for family." Her words landed heavier than the snowflakes collecting on his coat. Mike eventually diagnosed the problem. "Radiator's shot. I can tow you to my shop. Won't take long to patch it, enough to get you moving." Daniel checked his watch, calculating delays, profits, losses. Every minute felt like money burning. At the small garage in Etobicoke, Christmas lights were strung unevenly across the ceiling. A modest tree stood in the corner, decorated with handmade ornaments. Lily sat at a tiny desk coloring what looked like Christmas cards. "You make those?" Daniel asked without thinking. She nodded. "We give them to customers. Daddy says not everyone gets a card at Christmas." Daniel watched as Mike worked carefully, methodically. No rush, no panic, just steady hands and quiet humming of an old carol playing on the radio. "Shouldn't you be home?" Daniel asked him. Mike shrugged. "This is home, most days. But we close early tomorrow. My mom's coming over. She doesn't like being alone on Christmas." Daniel felt something tighten in his chest. When the repair was done, Daniel reached for his wallet. "How much?" Mike named a number so reasonable it startled him. "That's it," Mike chuckled. "It's Christmas. Besides, Lily says hot chocolate is part of the service." Daniel looked at the little girl, who was now carefully writing inside a card. She walked over and handed it to him. It had a crooked drawing of a car with snowflakes falling around it. Inside, in uneven handwriting, it read, "Merry Christmas. Don't be too busy to be happy." He didn't know why his throat suddenly felt dry. Back in the car, his driver asked, "Airport?" Daniel stared at the card. At Lily and Mike in the rearview mirror, waving as snow fell around them. He thought of his mother's voicemail. Of the empty chair at her small dining table in Kingston. Of how many times she had said, "It's okay, I understand," when maybe it wasn't. "Change of plans," Daniel said quietly. "We're not going to the airport." "Sir." Drive to Kingston. The drive felt longer than any business trip he had ever taken. Snow-covered fields stretched endlessly along Highway 401. His phone buzzed constantly with emails about the Vancouver meeting. Investors asking for confirmations. His assistant calling repeatedly. For the first time in years, Daniel silenced his phone. When he pulled into his mother's driveway that evening, the porch light was on. A wreath hung slightly crooked on the door. He stood there for a moment, heart pounding harder than it ever had in a boardroom. He knocked. His mother opened the door slowly, surprise washing over her face. "Danny." He stepped forward and hugged her, really hugged her, breathing in the familiar scent of cinnamon and laundry detergent. "I'm not too busy this year," he whispered. She held him tighter. That Christmas Eve, they decorated cookies in her small kitchen. They laughed about old memories. He helped her shovel snow from the driveway. They watched a hockey game on TV like they used to when he was a boy. And somewhere between the laughter and the quiet moments by the tree, Daniel realized something he had forgotten in the rush of success. He had built a company worth millions, but he had almost gone bankrupt in the things that mattered. On Christmas morning, he called his assistant. "Reschedule Vancouver. If they can't wait until next week, they're not the right partners." There was silence on the other end. Then a hesitant, "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Later that day, he drove back to Toronto, not to his penthouse, but to Miller's Auto Repair. He found Mike closing up the shop. "I need a favor," Daniel said. Months later, Miller's Auto had doubled in size. Daniel had quietly invested in the garage, helping Mike expand without changing its heart. They added new equipment, hired 2 apprentices, and started a program offering free winter car checks for seniors in the community. But the Christmas lights stayed uneven. The handmade cards stayed on the counter. And every December, Daniel received one from Lily. He still ran his company. He still closed deals. But every Christmas, no matter what, he drove to Kingston first. Because sometimes it takes a broken radiator, a cup of hot chocolate, and a child's simple words to repair something far more important than a car. It takes love to repair a heart. And that was the best investment Daniel Harper ever made.